Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up this week's theme of sinister tones with a group that I don't think I've heard before, and they are a pretty small group as well, having only 1,500 monthly listeners on Spotify. We're looking at the group Chateaux. The track in question is Eyes of Stone. Let's dive in and see what they're bringing to the table today. A bit of an older sound here. The synth, I can't place that yet. But the riff style, rule of cool drumming. Sorry, not rule of cool drumming, straightforward drumming, very metronomic. Feels older to me. Okay. The offbeat vocal hits. I'm digging the whispered parts. There's an interesting layering on the vocals here in what I assume is the chorus. A little bit of bass movement there, that was nice. Very cool drum work here with the snare rolls followed by the tom. Is this the first time we've got the ride cymbal going? A little bit of galloping here. Interesting. I like that bridge. That worked well. All right. Yeah, that's a fine ending right there. Very straightforward song here. 5 minutes, 2 riffs. You get your verse riff, you get your chorus riff. The verse riff has a little bit of movement at the end, at the midpoint, and at the end before heading into the chorus. We take the riff, the first 20% of it, 25% of it, and we play that with moving chords. And so it has this chordal movement. Otherwise, the rest of the verse is just like one chord all the time. There is some harmonic movement within the riff itself, but the riff never changes. It's just the riff back to back to back. You got to really like that riff because you end up hearing a lot of it. The bass is primarily pedal tone, though there is some nice movement to it at the end of phrases. So much like the harmonic ending to the riff pattern, we get this extra bass work in the middle and the end, middle and the end of the chorus. Sorry, of the verse. The drumming in the verse, very straightforward. Accent on 2 and 4, hi-hat on every beat. And I remember what the bass was either every beat or 1 and 3, sort of back and forth. Either way, it's very rigid, very static, not a lot of movement to it. And then the vocals are just rather consistent in both places. Lots of energy, lots of projection, very bright, pretty typical heavy metal stuff right here in general for this verse. The chorus changes things up a little bit. We have a back and forth on the vocals. There's an effect on them here, and I don't entirely know what that effect is. There's some sort of widening, but there's movement to it. I don't know. It's a little off-putting for me. My ear immediately latched onto it, and I had a difficult time hearing anything else because it was very distracting. Not too sure about that, but they get pushed off to the left because off to the right we have whispers coming in. So we get this call and response there. The guitars have a different riff here. It's more driving. It's more energetic. There's a little bit of syncopation to it. And we have this harmonic movement. The riff itself isn't too strong. It's mostly these 2 chords with a rhythmic idea while strumming the chords themselves. The bass, pure pedal tone here. The drums are incredibly interesting though. It is a constant back and forth of keeping the beat with a little bit of bass kick syncopation for the first half, and then the second half being a series of snare rolls into tom runs, into snare rolls, into tom runs. It provides so much energy. It is this burst of directionality and momentum and just raw energy. This whole section makes me want to move way more than the verse ever did. And to me, it makes the verse comparatively feel rather stagnant. Despite it having a more driven guitar riff to it, the repetition really stands out against this more dynamic drumming, dynamic vocal work, the call and response, and the very directed chord progression stuff going on in here. We do another back and forth of these. Each of these I think are a minute long. We actually spend a lot of time in these verses and choruses, and they feel like they drag a little bit. And I don't know, it's not because of the tempo. I think the vocalist just wants to put a lot of words in there, but takes their time. A lot of the lyrics are a bit more on the legato side. Say a couple of words and then hold a word out for a little bit and then have space, just emptiness, while we allow a punctuating idea from the instruments. And it just drags out the sections, not because I think there's a lot of vocals, but that there's just a lot of space between vocal lines. So anyways, it takes us 4 minutes to get through a verse, chorus, which, I mean, when you think about that to most music today that's less than 3 minutes long, And here, 4 minutes, we're only done with the verse and chorus. I think you can see just how much longer these verses and choruses are compared to modern music. Not for a better or worse scenario, but just simply an observation about things. I did notice, though, with only a minute to go, I thought to myself, well, what are we going to do here? Given that this is pretty straightforward heavy metal, we've got to have a guitar solo in here. Are we just going to end on a solo? We get a very short solo. This thing couldn't have been more than 20 seconds. Lots of energy. The drummer shifts to the ride cymbal, which creates a lot of electricity in the air. It's a bright sound that really drives things forward. We have the guitar riff from... I actually don't remember what guitar riff was underneath everything. Given that it was driven, though, I'm going to assume it was the verse riff. I think that we even had a little bit of a tempo increase. The solo itself was fine. To me, I would write it off as serviceable. Not write it off, describe it as serviceable. I don't think it necessarily does anything of interest. It is a solo because metal songs have solos. It's fine, but it doesn't stand out to me in any way. There's some nice shredding in it. Some good directionality. No, I have no complaints about it. It just doesn't do anything. It doesn't narratively tell me much of a story. It doesn't really fit much with the song. I think they did a great job at finding an elevated sound of the song in general. It doesn't feel completely detached, but it's also very different from everything else in the song. I don't know. It's fine. It's okay. Like I said, nothing bad to say about it, but nothing really good either. And then we wrap the song up again with the chorus. So very straightforward track here. I did like the synth at the beginning. I thought that was a nice addition, but we didn't really get much synth elsewhere. Did I miss that? Was I so fixated on riffage and vocal work that I missed the synth in the song? It just feels like a straightforward heavy metal track to me, though. Sinister tones, I don't know. And jeez. Here's where the subjective element comes in. Compared to yesterday's track from Sinister, no, this is not Sinister in that same vein. But also, if we go back to the first track this week and listen to King Crimson's Red, that also doesn't feel very sinister compared to Sinistros. So it's definitely a subjective element, and you can't really compare things too well because Sinister typically is going to have elements of heaviness, abrasion, antagonistic elements, and dark abrasive metal does that really well. I'm glad that we found ways to explore sinister tones outside of a pure metal week. And I think kicking it off with what was Tuesdays? I think we kicked it off with two non-metals this week. Oh, we also had Sigur Rós too. And that worked really well, a bit of a post-rock slow burn. So yeah, dude, I think we've had some really good variety. And so, like I said, it's not fair to say this metal track felt really sinister and anything else needs to be to that level to fit the week. But King Crimson, certainly sinister track. Sigur Rós, sinister track. Did they have that same sinister feeling as Sinistro? No. So when I come back to this track, does it feel sinister? I think compared to the stuff this week, no. And the fact that heavy metal in general to me just kind of feels... I'm going to take some flack for this. It feels bland. I think a lot of that is just due to contextualization. That my understanding of metal is stuff that came after heavy metal, that I understand its importance as a jumping off point, a platforming, a creating of this sound that modern metal is based on, but it doesn't really sound heavy or antagonistic or even non-palatable. Like, it kind of blows my mind that at one point Black Sabbath was counterculture when it sounds so plain and simple to modern me. And this kind of fits in the same boat. This sounds very poppy to me. Does that mean it isn't sinister? No, and I think it does start off. The intro leans into more sinister tones. I feel like it backs off of that a little bit through the track, but I also don't want to discredit that somebody may have listened to this and found this to be rather sinister. This may have been a really dark song compared to what they mostly listened to, and that's where context and experience certainly play into things. There's also the idea that the songs this week that I've described as sinister are also based around a Western pop culture idea of what sinister tones are. It's a focus on heaviness, of weightiness, and a focus on primarily tritones. We've had a lot of tritones this week, just lots of dissonance. But not every culture would need to equate dissonance and weight with sinister ideas. There's tension in this track. Tension can be sinister. So, did I find this to be sinister? No. Does that mean it wasn't? Not at all. And I think that's where we're going to leave that one then. Interesting track here. Let's dive into some lyrics, though. I got a gist of it, dude. I picked up the lyrics. This is about Medusa, a gorgon, the eyes of stone, the snakes that turn you to stone, something about I want to see you or I want your gaze on me or something like that. I'm pretty sure I picked up on the gist of this track. But let me go read the lyrics and see what's actually going on. All right. This is a legitimate 80s heavy metal track. I couldn't quite figure out if this was actual older heavy metal or some sort of revival elements. But yeah, 1984. And I think the lyrics reflect that. It is a song about coming face to face with Medusa herself. Literally name dropped in here. This recurring line is, I felt the touch of the Medusa's gaze. This idea of the touch of Medusa's gaze brings in a physical element to it that certainly works as a turn of phrase, but also leans into some sexual undertones to this track. It seems as if the narrator has not just found Medusa and been turned to stone by her, but has been, seduced by Medusa. And there's quite a bit of allusion towards this. At one point, after going into her cave, it doesn't really say. They went someplace of hers. He says that my mind was stripped bare, held in her gaze. Says that he didn't have to be told that he knew he was going in. Oh, to the house of old sin. There we go. So it is a house. Old sin also being lust. I'm kind of assuming what's going on there. The second verse says, she fed me her nectar, and she took what I thought was mine. Yeah, I think it's very easy to see some double entendres in here. Anyway, it says that she kept me locked in there inside of her stare like a fly within a web. When the night turned to day, I felt my life flow away. I could see the living evil growing in her eyes. It's an ancient, cold, hot, and very wise. She threw me away like a doll made of clay, and she broke me in tow. So now I wander alone because my life turned to stone. That makes no sense, by the way. I wander alone because my life turned to stone. Oh, metaphor. Okay, let me hit the chorus real quick. Gaze upon me, stay for a while, eyes of stone, calling me with a smile. The smile makes it seem enticing. Again, it's the whole seduction element to this. Here's the thing though, this is all a metaphor. And I think that line about wandering alone, not because they turned to stone, but their life turned to stone, which in one way, your living element is your life. You get turned to stone, yeah, your life's kind of turned to stone too. But I think that this clear separation lyrically, this isn't a real Medusa. He got seduced by a woman and thought it was something it wasn't. Might not even been seduction. He might have just been reading the wrong signals, to be honest. Thought the relationship was something it wasn't. his heart got burned, and he wrote a song about how she was the Medusa and turned his life to stone, and now he's got a hardened heart now because the women in his past have burned him too many times. It feels very boomerish, is what I'm getting at here. It definitely feels of the 80s to me. Does this match the music? I don't know, maybe. There's a lot of energy in the track, particularly the chorus and the bridge. The song has an energy to it. But ultimately, the song is about pain. It's about being stuck in a place that apparently he didn't want to be, but he felt compelled to be. And I don't really feel those feelings in the music. And I don't know. The bridge is pretty high energy. I don't really see a lot of that in the lyrics. I think it's just one of those songs where you got some cool riffs, you got a story your vocalist wants to tell, and you just smash them together. I mean, this is heavy metal. It's got a lot of music like that in it. So I don't think I'm going to try to grasp at straws to tie it all together. I don't think there's that thematic synergy on this one. These are my thoughts then on Chateau's Eyes of Stone. With the low monthly listeners, I really thought this was a new band doing revival of the heavy metal sounds. But no, I guess they're just a lesser known heavy metal group from the 80s. So kind of cool. We don't get to see too much traditional heavy metal on the channel. It's kind of nice to have something like this, especially since it sounds kind of nice, like a poppy kind of metal, but without being like modern pop metal. Anyways, let's wrap this up. These are my thoughts on Chateau's Eyes of Stone. I need to shut myself up before I say something stupid. I just compared heavy metal to pop music. Once again, though, it's that experience stuff. It's, where heavy feels like to me. What are your thoughts on this, though? Do you agree with anything I said? Do you need to shoot me down in the comments right now? Do you have a different take or interpretation on this track? Please put all of that and any other thoughts you might have down into the comment section below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. You can go here and find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. We have something special tomorrow. We have 2 album reviews. You'll be able to pick and choose what you want to listen to. One of them, I think, is like progressive rock, folk rock, somewhere in that area. I'm not sure what the other album is. Maybe, hopefully, it'll be something very different and kind of have what kind of music do you like? You have a little bit of a choice. Anyways, though, 2 album reviews to look forward to. Then, of course, the live stream on Sunday morning. All right, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.